The alien queen thought she married a humble man until she saw him in action. The halls of the Vierk's palace shimmered with light from the towering crystal chandeliers. Every corner glimmered, every wall carved with intricate patterns of alien symbols that told the history of the Vierk's dominion. Servants floated quietly along the corridors, their movements graceful, almost silent. At the heart of the palace, in the throne room, Queen Scifi sat on her elevated seat. Her violet eyes scanned the room, calm yet sharp, reflecting centuries of leadership. The room was alive with nobles, their multi-limbed forms draped in vibrant fabrics, each trying to outshine the other. Yet the focus was not on them. It was on the man standing before the queen, Elia's ward, a human. He stood on the marble floor with perfect posture, hands folded lightly behind his back. His uniform was simple, a deep blue with a few stripes of gold, signifying only a modest rank. His dark hair was combed neatly, and his eyes, sharp and clear, showed a calm confidence. He was not tall by Vierk's standards. His build was modest, lacking the exaggerated strength the alien nobles prized. Yet he carried himself with a quiet dignity that made the room fall silent. "Elia's ward," Queen Scifi said, her voice smooth but commanding. "You have traveled far to be here. Welcome to the Vierk's dominion." "Your Majesty," Elias replied, his voice calm and steady, "it is an honor beyond measure to stand in your presence." There was a murmur among the nobles. Some whispered behind their hands, casting glances at one another. "A human and the queen intends to marry him?" one hissed. Another shook their head, their antennae trembling. "He looks harmless, weak." Queen Scifi ignored the murmurs. She had heard them before. The galaxy considered humans fragile, emotional, and unfit to rule beside a true monarch. But she had seen something in Elias that most had not. In the short time they had spent together, he had listened, learned, and respected her words. He had a calmness that suggested patience, intelligence, and she admitted silently a surprising strength of mind. "Your journey must have been long," the queen continued. "I trust the human worlds were as welcoming as I hoped." "They were, Your Majesty," Elias answered. "But your invitation is what matters most." He bowed slightly. Even this simple gesture carried a sense of reverence without weakness. The queen studied him for a moment. He did not fidget. He did not tremble under the gaze of a queen who had commanded fleets and territories for decades. In a galaxy where most beings wore pride like armor, he did not feel the need to prove anything, and that intrigued her. "Very well," she said. "The council has prepared the necessary arrangements. Today we honor your arrival with the formal greetings of our court." As the words left her lips, a group of Vierk's nobles stepped forward. They were magnificent, their colors vibrant, their forms grand. One of the nobles, a tall being with 4 arms and a face lined with age, approached Elias. "Human," he said, his voice dripping with thinly veiled disdain. "Do you understand the honor you are about to receive? The queen does not choose a consort lightly." Elias inclined his head. "I understand, noble one. I am here to serve and to learn." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Learn? You come from a small, primitive world. What could you possibly offer this court?" Elias smiled faintly, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. "Perhaps not what you expect, but sometimes strength comes in ways not immediately visible." A ripple of shock ran through the council. None dared speak further. Elias' words were calm, yet they carried weight. The noble blinked, his multiple eyes narrowing. He turned and walked away, muttering under his breath. Queen Scifi felt a faint smile tug at her lips. Elias had said nothing aggressive, nothing boastful, yet the room had shifted. The nobles were unsettled. He had not challenged them with weapons or words of war, only with confidence and composure. The ceremony began. Humans were simple in their customs, but Elias adapted gracefully to every movement, every bow, every gesture. The queen observed him closely. She noticed the way he carried himself, steady, unshakable, patient. Unlike the nobles who fought for attention, Elias seemed to move as if he belonged everywhere without needing proof. During the ceremony, servants brought out gifts. Rare crystals that changed color in sunlight, delicate machines that hummed softly, and other treasures that showcased the wealth and sophistication of the Vierk's dominion. Elias accepted each with gratitude, never greed, never surprise. He handled everything with respect, even returning one artifact after inspection, explaining, "This device could serve your scientists better than it serves me. I wish it to remain where it belongs." The queen's eyes widened slightly. That was not something most outsiders would notice or care about, but Elias had noticed, and he acted without hesitation. After the ceremony, the court retired to the palace gardens. The gardens were enormous, spanning several levels, filled with exotic plants that glowed softly in the alien twilight. Pools of clear water reflected the colors of the sky, and bridges arched over small streams. Elias walked beside the queen, his movements careful, thoughtful. "You move quietly," Selira remarked. "Most humans are loud, restless. You seem different." Elias smiled faintly. "Perhaps we are not all the same, Your Majesty. I have learned to listen before speaking, to observe before acting. It is necessary when one seeks to understand." The queen looked at him. She had seen many species across the stars, and she had learned to judge them quickly. Most humans were unpredictable, impulsive, or weak. Elias was none of these things. He was deliberate, calculated. Strong in a way that could not be measured by size or speed. A sudden alert broke the quiet of the garden. The palace communication crystal flashed red. The head of the royal intelligence appeared on a small holographic display. "Your Majesty," the officer said, his many eyes wide, "we have received word from the border systems. An unknown fleet has appeared near the Vierk's frontier. They are large, organized, and aggressive. Preliminary scans suggest weapons of mass destruction." The queen's violet eyes narrowed. "How many ships?" "Too many for our current defenses, Your Majesty. We request immediate strategic guidance." Elias turned slightly to observe the display. He did not panic. He did not fidget. Instead, he studied the patterns, the movements, and the formations, speaking softly, almost to himself. "Your Majesty," he said after a moment, "this is serious but not impossible to contain. I would like permission to review your defense protocols and suggest a plan." The nobles gasped. It was unheard of for a human to speak in such matters. Some exchanged angry glances. One muttered, "Does the queen not see how weak he is? Let the trained generals decide." Queen Selira raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Elias Ward has arrived in my court not merely as a husband, but as a representative of his people. Let him speak." The human stepped closer to the display, pointing out details of the fleet's formation. He suggested tactical repositioning, defensive maneuvers, and even subtle countermeasures the Vierk's fleet had overlooked. He spoke not with pride, but with clarity and precision. The queen watched in fascination. This was not the man she had assumed to be quiet, simple, and gentle. This was someone who understood strategy, timing, and the value of lives. He did not shout. He did not demand attention, yet every word carried weight. The nobles shifted uncomfortably. Their queen had chosen a human to marry, and now he was showing a skill none of them could match. Some whispered doubts about their own abilities. After reviewing the plans, Elias turned to the queen. "This is what I suggest. Your forces are strong, but the enemy's approach is clever. If we deploy defenses here and keep our ships mobile, we can minimize losses and force them into positions where they have no advantage." Selira nodded slowly. "You speak with experience." "I have learned from my world's conflicts, Your Majesty," Elias said, "and from careful observation of the galaxy. Strength is not always measured by size or weaponry. Sometimes it is measured by patience, understanding, and timing." The queen felt a strange thrill of respect and admiration. She had assumed Elias would be a mild, harmless partner. Now she saw him in a new light. Quiet, humble, yet not weak. Not at all. For the first time, she wondered what the galaxy had misunderstood about humans. Perhaps their true power was never in arrogance or strength on display, but in the quiet, unassuming force behind a calm mind. The sun set beyond the palace walls, painting the sky in deep reds and purples. Elias remained by her side, watching the stars, listening, thinking. Queen Selira knew that this was only the beginning. The man she had married might appear humble, but she had already glimpsed the truth. He was someone the galaxy would soon remember, not for his words, but for his actions. And in the coming days, that truth would be revealed in ways none could imagine. The warning from the border systems hung over the Vierk's palace like a dark cloud. Outside, the twin suns of the Vierk's homeworld burned bright in the sky, but the light could not chase away the tension inside the throne room. Queen Selira sat at the head of the table, flanked by her most trusted commanders. Holographic displays floated above the table, showing the movements of alien fleets approaching from the outer systems. The Vierk's soldiers were seasoned and proud, yet even they looked uneasy. These were no ordinary raids or skirmishes. The approaching fleet moved with precision, coordinating attacks across multiple star systems at the same time. Reports suggested that entire colonies had been overrun within hours, their defenses crushed before they could mount a proper resistance. Elias Ward stood quietly near the Queen, observing every detail. He did not fidget, did not whisper, and did not show fear. His eyes scanned the holograms with patience, noting patterns that the Vierk's commanders missed. "Your Majesty," said General Krall, a four-armed veteran of countless wars, his voice harsh with irritation, "we have enough ships. We need only send the fleets to intercept. Humans are untrained for this scale of battle." Elias tilted his head slightly, listening. When he finally spoke, his words were calm, measured, and precise. "General, your fleets are strong," Elias began, "but the enemy is not attacking randomly. They move in formations that anticipate your standard tactics. If we respond without adaptation, we risk heavy losses." The general's eyes narrowed. "And you, human, think you know better than centuries of Vierk's strategy?" "I do not know better," Elias said softly. "I see patterns you may overlook because you expect your enemies to fight as the Vierks have always fought. But these attackers are not typical. Their methods are new, unfamiliar, and adaptable. That is their strength." A murmur ran through the council. Some nobles exchanged skeptical glances. To them, humans were fragile, emotional, and weak. Yet here was one, calmly assessing a crisis that had shaken the best Vierk's commanders. Queen Selyra leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Elias. "What do you propose?" Elias gestured to the hologram. "We must reposition the fleets in a way that denies them immediate advantage. Keep some units hidden, mobile, and ready to strike. Let the enemy believe they have an easy path, and then we control the engagement. Precision and timing will matter more than brute force." Krall snorted. "Timing? Precision? We fight battles with strength, not tricks." Elias smiled faintly. "Sometimes patience is stronger than strength, General. Sometimes strategy is mightier than weapons." Selyra felt a small surge of admiration. Her human husband spoke as though he had lived in the shadows of war, learned patience, and mastered observation. Perhaps there was more to him than the galaxy assumed. The council reluctantly agreed to test Elias' plan. Messages were sent to the fleets at the border systems. The soldiers, trained in centuries-old tactics, were uneasy with the new instructions. Many whispered, "This is madness," while others doubted a human could lead their fleets better than seasoned commanders. Meanwhile, Elias moved among the officers, quietly advising, clarifying, and observing. His presence did not demand attention, yet his calm authority naturally drew people to him. Unlike the Vierks, who often demonstrated power to assert control, Elias showed skill and thoughtfulness, and that alone made others listen. The first reports from the front arrived just hours later. The human influence tactics began to take effect. The enemy fleet, expecting the usual Vierk's aggression, fell into traps without even realizing it. Some of their smaller ships were intercepted and neutralized before reinforcements could arrive. Others were funneled into tight spaces, where their numbers became a disadvantage. The throne room buzzed with tension and disbelief. General Krall's four arms clenched tightly. "This is working," he muttered, almost unwilling to admit it. Selyra's gaze stayed on Elias. She could see the calm calculation in his eyes, the slight shift of his hands as he adjusted projections, the faint smile when a move succeeded. The human's presence had changed the energy of the council. Where panic had begun, now there was cautious hope. Yet even as the first victories came, the threat was far from over. Reports indicated that the enemy had sent larger warships, far beyond what the border defenses could handle. Entire colonies had been destroyed, their populations in peril. Selyra felt the weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. She had brought Elias to her world for diplomacy and companionship, but now the lives of billions rested in the hands of a man she had barely known before their marriage. "Your Majesty," Elias said softly, drawing her attention, "we must prepare for their next move. They will adapt, and if we are not ready, we could lose everything we have gained." Selyra nodded. "And what do you suggest?" He pointed at the hologram, tracing the paths of the enemy fleet. "We must use mobility over force. Some units should retreat deliberately, drawing them in. Others must remain hidden and strike at weak points. It is a game of patience and timing. The moment we act must be perfect." Krall barked. "A human thinks this is a game? Lives are at stake." "Precisely because lives are at stake, Elias replied evenly. We cannot afford to act recklessly. Patience is not inaction. It is preparation. It is observation. It is knowing when to strike. The general was silent, unsure whether to scoff or listen. But the queen's eyes, sharp and commanding, left no room for argument. As the fleets moved into position, Elias continued his quiet guidance. He instructed some ships to feign retreat, drawing the enemy into narrow asteroid fields. Others were hidden behind planetary shadows, ready to strike when the enemy became overconfident. Each move was calculated, each adjustment precise. Hours turned into days, and the first full-scale engagement began. The enemy fleet, confident and aggressive, advanced toward the outer colonies. They did not realize they were walking into a trap. The human strategy worked perfectly. Smaller ships intercepted reinforcements, while hidden units emerged from shadows to strike at critical points. The enemy's formations crumbled under pressure. Queen Scifi watched from the command center, her heart pounding. The enemy ships were vast and powerful, yet the Viewerks fleets, guided by Elias, moved with unmatched coordination. The human did not shout orders or demand obedience. He spoke calmly, made adjustments, and the Viewerks soldiers followed because they trusted his mind. The battle reached its peak when the enemy flagship attempted a direct assault on the Viewerks' homeworld. Elias identified a weak point in its defenses, a flaw even the most experienced Viewerks commanders had missed. Target the side engines, he said quietly. Once they are disabled, the ship will lose mobility. Focus all firepower there. The attack was executed flawlessly. The flagship shuddered under precise strikes, its movement slowing. Alien soldiers aboard the enemy vessel panicked as small, human-controlled boarding ships closed in. The tide of battle shifted in favor of the Viewerks fleets, yet it was not brute force that won. It was strategy, observation, and calm calculation. For the first time, many of the Viewerks soldiers whispered with awe, not fear. They had underestimated the human beside their queen, and now they were beginning to understand that appearances could be deceiving. After the battle ended, reports confirmed heavy losses for the enemy, while the Viewerks fleets suffered minimal casualties. The queen exhaled, a mixture of relief and admiration washing over her. She turned to Elias, who stood quietly observing the aftermath without boast or pride. You saved them, she said softly. I guided them, Elias corrected gently. They fought bravely, they followed orders well, the credit is theirs, your majesty. Scifi smiled faintly. She realized how different this man was from anyone she had met in the galaxy. He did not seek glory or recognition. He did not need to prove himself. He acted because it was necessary, and he acted well. The nobles, however, were not yet convinced. Some still whispered doubts, uneasy with the quiet power Elias had displayed. They could not comprehend a strength that did not roar. Yet the queen did not mind. She had seen the truth, and that truth would guide her through the days ahead. As the sun set behind the palace, casting long shadows across the gardens, Queen Scifi and Elias stood together, watching the horizon. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Other fleets, larger and more dangerous, were moving toward Viewerks territory. Tomorrow we will need to plan again, Elias said softly, his voice steady. The enemy will learn, adapt, we must be ready. Scifi nodded, a new respect in her eyes. I see now why the galaxy underestimates humans, she said. They do not know what patience, intelligence, and quiet strength can achieve. Elias glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. Some lessons take longer to learn, your majesty, and some are more important than others. The queen studied him, the man she had married not for his power, but for the alliance he represented. Now she understood that power came in many forms, and Elias Ward, humble, calm, and seemingly unassuming, was a force the galaxy would soon remember. The war had begun, and the shadow of conflict stretched across the stars. But with Elias at her side, Queen Scifi felt a strange confidence. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but she had seen their true strength. And soon the rest of the Viewerks dominion, and perhaps the entire galaxy, would see it too. The night over the Viewerks capital was unusually quiet. The palace gardens glimmered under the soft light of twin moons, their reflection dancing across the crystal-lined pools. Yet within the throne room, tension was far from calm. Reports of enemy movements poured in constantly, each message bringing new threats. The Viewerks generals debated loudly, their voices clashing like thunder. Queen Scifi watched silently from her seat. Her violet eyes were sharp, scanning each commander, weighing every suggestion. The humans had brought some relief, but the threat was far from over. The enemy fleet was not just large, it was cunning. They were adapting to Vyark's tactics in ways no one had predicted. Even the victory of the last engagement had only delayed them. Elia's ward stood quietly near her side. His posture was relaxed, but his mind was alert, calculating. He did not argue, did not boast, yet he listened to every word, every suggestion. Unlike the Vyark's commanders, who often spoke to impress, Elia spoke only when necessary, and when he did, the words carried clarity. "Your Majesty," General Kral said, his voice heavy with frustration, "we cannot wait any longer. We must attack now or risk losing more systems. Our fleets are ready, we have the numbers." Elia's dark eyes met the general's, calm but unwavering. "Numbers alone do not win battles, General," he said. "You speak of strength, but strength without strategy is wasted. If we act now without understanding the enemy's next move, we could lose far more than we expect." The general bristled. "And you, human, think you know the enemy better than Vyark's experience?" Elias smiled faintly. "I do not think, I observe. And the patterns I see suggest a different approach, one that could save lives and secure victory." Queen Selira's gaze lingered on him. Each day, Elias revealed a new layer of skill, a new depth that the galaxy had never acknowledged in humans. The court believed they had married a humble, harmless man. They were wrong. "Show me," the queen said simply. "Explain your plan." Elias stepped forward, his hand tracing lines over the holographic display of the enemy fleet. He spoke calmly, detailing each movement, each weak point, each strategy that would force the enemy into mistakes. He proposed using the Vyark's fleets not as blunt instruments, but as a coordinated force, dividing them into smaller units, hiding reserves, and creating situations where the enemy could not predict their next move. The generals exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the aggressive, direct tactic they were accustomed to. This was subtle, precise, and unfamiliar. Some doubted its effectiveness. Others, watching Elias closely, could not deny the logic in his words. Selira studied the reactions carefully. She had never seen her commanders so unsettled by calm reasoning rather than orders shouted in rage. Elias had done something rare. He had made them listen without fear, without force, without demand. "Prepare the fleets as he suggests," Selira commanded. "We follow his plan." The room fell silent, and the commanders nodded reluctantly. They would follow the queen's order, though uncertainty lingered in their minds. By the next morning, the Vyark's fleets were in position. Smaller units patrolled the borders, while hidden reserves waited in the shadows of asteroids and gas clouds. The enemy fleet approached, confident in their size and weaponry, unaware that they were walking into a carefully prepared trap. Elias remained in the command center, observing every movement. His sharp mind processed multiple variables at once: enemy speed, trajectory, possible maneuvers, and Vyark's response times. He did not panic. He did not demand immediate action. He waited for the exact moment to strike. Hours passed, and the first clashes began. The enemy ships, assuming Vyark's forces would act as they always did, advanced boldly. Then, as predicted, the hidden units emerged. Smaller, agile ships struck at vulnerable points in the enemy formation. Some of the larger enemy vessels were caught between advancing forces and hidden reserves. The battle quickly turned chaotic for the attackers, though they could not understand why. Queen Selira watched closely, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and admiration. The human beside her was no longer a quiet observer. He was orchestrating the battle with perfect timing, guiding the Vyark's fleets with clarity and precision. "Adjust the left flank," Elias said softly, pointing to the holographic map. "Their reinforcements are heading that way. Pull the units slightly back, lure them in, and strike the side engines simultaneously." The Vyark's commanders executed the maneuver, some still unsure of its wisdom. Within minutes, the enemy formation broke. Ships collided, weapons fired into unguarded spaces, and panic spread across their fleet. The humans' plan worked perfectly, yet the real test was yet to come. The enemy flagship, massive and heavily armed, began a direct assault on the Vyark's capital. Its weapons could destroy entire cities in moments, and even the strongest Vyark ships struggled to counter its firepower. Elias studied the flagship's trajectory carefully. "There," he said, pointing to the weaker starboard engines. "Target them. Once they are disabled, the flagship will lose mobility. We can board it safely and neutralize the command. A group of Vyerk's boarding ships moved under his guidance, small and precise, avoiding the flagship's main weapons. In perfect coordination, they struck the engines, disabling them. The massive ship staggered, unable to maneuver effectively. Selyra's eyes widened. She had not expected such a direct move from her human consort. Yet Elias remained calm, almost serene. He was in complete control, guiding the battle like a conductor leading an orchestra. The enemy crew panicked as the boarding ships advanced. Many were captured, while others surrendered. The Vyerk's fleet, now fully coordinated, began to push back the remaining enemy forces. What had seemed like an unstoppable invasion was quickly collapsing under the careful strategy of a man who had once seemed humble and ordinary. Queen Selyra felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. The man she had married, who walked quietly beside her in the palace gardens, had orchestrated a victory that even her most seasoned generals could not have achieved alone. After the battle ended, the command center buzzed with messages. Colonies had been saved, and enemy forces were in retreat. The humans' plan had worked flawlessly, and the Vyerk soldiers who had doubted him now looked at him with a mixture of respect and confusion. Elias turned to the queen, bowing slightly. "The fleets are secure, your majesty. Casualties were minimized, and the enemy's advance has been stopped for now." Selyra nodded, feeling a deep sense of relief. She studied him carefully. "You hid this skill from me, from everyone." Elias smiled faintly. "It was never necessary to reveal it. My duty is to protect, not to impress." The queen's violet eyes softened. She realized something important. Humans did not seek recognition or praise. They acted because it was right, because it was necessary, and because they were capable. This humility, combined with intelligence and courage, was a strength the galaxy had underestimated for centuries. Meanwhile, the Vyerk's commanders were silent, processing the unexpected turn of events. Some muttered excuses, others grudgingly praised the human. But all knew one thing: the man beside their queen was no ordinary consort. As the night deepened over the Vyerk's capital, Selyra and Elias walked quietly through the gardens. The moonlight reflected off the crystal pools, casting a serene glow. "You surprised everyone today," Selyra said softly. Elias shook his head. "I did what needed to be done, your majesty. The soldiers fought bravely. They executed the plan. I only guided them." The queen looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. "I have underestimated you, Elias. I thought you were humble, quiet, harmless. Now I see that you are far more than that." He bowed his head slightly, his expression modest. "Strength is not always shown by appearance or words, your majesty. Sometimes it is shown by action, patience, and care." Selyra's eyes reflected admiration and something else, pride. She had chosen a partner who seemed gentle, unassuming, and calm. Yet he had revealed a depth of skill and courage that few could match. She realized the galaxy's assumption that humans were weak was entirely wrong. As they walked, a warning arrived from the intelligence division. Another fleet, larger and more organized, was moving toward Vyerk space. The war was far from over. Selyra looked at Elias, her violet eyes determined. "Then we must prepare again." Elias nodded. "We will. And we will meet them as we did today, with patience, strategy, and careful action. The galaxy underestimates humans at its own risk." The queen felt a strange sense of calm. With Elias by her side, she knew they could face anything. He was quiet, humble, and gentle, but he was also a force the galaxy had never seen coming. The night passed, and the Vyerk's palace prepared for the next challenge. The queen's heart was steady, her mind sharp. She had seen the man behind the smile, and now she understood why humans were feared and respected across worlds, not because they boasted, but because they acted with intelligence, courage, and unmatched determination. The war was far from over. But Queen Selyra knew one truth. Her consort, Elias Ward, was no ordinary human. And soon, the galaxy would learn the same lesson. The stars over the Vyerk's capital glimmered cold and distant, indifferent to the turmoil unfolding below. Queen Selyra stood at the observation balcony of her palace, her violet eyes scanning the vast expanse of space. The enemy fleet, larger and more organized than any the Vyerks had ever faced, advanced steadily, confident that their previous failures had been mere accidents. They had underestimated humans, and specifically the man standing beside their queen. Elias Ward was calm, as always. He moved through the command center with quiet authority, observing the fleet movements, monitoring communications, and adjusting plans. Unlike the Vierk's generals who shouted and gestured, he acted with precision and patience. Every decision he made was deliberate, every word measured. "Your Majesty," Elias said softly, standing beside her, "the enemy has adapted to our previous strategies. They will attempt to bypass the main defenses and strike directly at key systems." Lyra's jaw tightened. "Then we must stop them before they reach the capital. What is your plan?" Elias pointed to the holographic map hovering in the center of the command chamber. "We use their confidence against them. Smaller, faster units will act as bait, drawing their fleets into ambush points. Hidden reserves, including some human ships, will strike critical systems simultaneously. Their flagship is vulnerable if we focus our attack precisely." The generals exchanged uneasy glances. The idea was bold, risky even. Many believed the humans lacked the resources or skill to coordinate such a maneuver, yet they could not deny Elia's confidence and clarity. General Krause spoke first. "And if this fails?" Elias did not flinch. "Then we adjust. Humans are adaptable. Every contingency has been considered." Lyra nodded. She had learned long ago that confidence without action meant nothing. Elia's confidence came from knowledge, preparation, and skill. That was a rare combination, and one she had come to respect deeply. The fleets moved into position. The enemy approached, unaware that they were about to be funneled into traps. Smaller Vierk's units engaged briefly, drawing the enemy in, while hidden forces waited in shadows, ready to strike. Elias coordinated with both the Vierk's commanders and human ships through secure channels. His calm voice guided each movement, each decision, and each strike. The first wave of engagement began. The enemy advanced boldly, confident in their size and firepower. Then, as predicted, the ambush unfolded. Hidden units struck critical points in the enemy formation. Enemy ships collided with one another in confusion, and their attacks became disorganized. Small human craft moved with agility, striking weak spots while avoiding heavy fire. Lyra watched with growing admiration. The man beside her, who had seemed gentle and quiet in the palace gardens, now commanded a battle with precision unmatched by even the most experienced Vierk's admirals. His humility did not diminish his effectiveness, it enhanced it. Hours passed, and the battle intensified. The enemy flagship, massive and heavily armed, advanced toward the Vierk's homeworld. Its weapons were capable of destroying entire cities in minutes. The Vierk's soldiers braced for impact, fearing catastrophe. Elias did not panic. He observed the flagship's movements carefully. "Focus on the starboard engines," he instructed calmly. "Disable them and the flagship will lose mobility. Boarding units will follow immediately." Vierk's units executed his orders precisely. The engines exploded under coordinated fire, and the massive vessel staggered, unable to maneuver effectively. Panic spread among the enemy ranks. Elia's calm instructions had turned the tide once again. Lyra felt a surge of pride and awe. The human beside her had orchestrated a victory not through brute force, but through intellect, timing, and careful action. He was not just a strategist, he was a force that no one could ignore. The next phase of the plan began. Elias personally coordinated the boarding of the enemy flagship. Human and Vierk's forces moved together seamlessly, striking at critical points with unmatched precision. The enemy crew, confused and demoralized, could not resist the coordinated attack. Within hours, the flagship was under control, its command officers captured, and the remaining enemy forces in disarray. The battle was over, but the impact was immediate. Colonies that had faced destruction were now safe. The enemy fleet retreated, humiliated and broken. The Vierk soldiers, many of whom had doubted the human from the start, looked at Elias with a mixture of respect and disbelief. Lyra approached him as he reviewed the battlefield on the holographic display. "You saved countless lives," she said softly. Elias shook his head. "We saved lives together. The soldiers executed the plan. They fought bravely. I only guided them." The queen studied him, a faint smile forming on her lips. "You have shown me something I never expected. Strength is not always visible, and courage does not always roar. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and unassuming. You have that strength." Elias bowed slightly. "Strength is not meant to be shown for pride, Your Majesty. It is to be used when necessary and with care." The queen felt a warmth in her chest, a mix of admiration, trust, and something deeper she could not yet name. She had married a man who appeared humble, gentle, and quiet. But now she saw the truth. He was more than that. He was a protector, a strategist, and a force the galaxy had underestimated for centuries. As the night deepened, Scifi and Elias walked through the palace gardens, the soft glow of the twin moons reflecting on the crystal-lined pools. The air was cool, and the distant sounds of the city below reminded them that life continued despite the chaos beyond their world. "You have changed everything," Scifi said softly. Elias glanced at her, his dark eyes steady. "I only acted when necessary." "But the galaxy will learn a lesson. Humans are not weak. We do not seek power for its own sake. We act to protect, to preserve, and to survive." Scifi nodded. She had always known humans were underestimated, but seeing it firsthand was different. She realized that the galaxy had misunderstood them entirely. They were not fragile, emotional, or weak. They were patient, intelligent, and capable of incredible feats when guided by careful thought and resolve. The queen felt a sense of calm, a confidence she had not felt in years. With Elias at her side, she knew that the Vierk's dominion, and perhaps the galaxy itself, could face any challenge. His quiet strength, combined with his skill and intelligence, made him a partner unlike any she had known. Yet even as victory settled over the battlefield, the queen knew the war was far from over. Other fleets, larger and more cunning, were still moving toward Vierk's space. The shadow of conflict stretched across the stars, and the true test of Elias' abilities was yet to come. The next morning, reports arrived from the front line. Enemy forces that had survived the flagship's capture were retreating, but intelligence suggested that they were regrouping. Another wave of attack, stronger and more determined, was inevitable. The queen studied the reports with Elias at her side, her violet eyes focused and sharp. "Then we must prepare again," she said, determination in her voice. Elias nodded. "We will, and we will meet them as we have before, with patience, strategy, and careful action." The galaxy underestimates humans at its own risk. The queen smiled faintly, a mix of admiration and pride. She had married a humble man, one who had seemed gentle and unassuming. Yet now she understood the truth. Elias Ward was a force of nature, a guardian capable of guiding entire fleets to victory without ever raising his voice or showing arrogance. The Vierk's generals, once doubtful, now respected him. The soldiers, once uncertain, now trusted his guidance. And the queen, who had married him for reasons of duty and diplomacy, now saw a man of extraordinary skill, courage, and wisdom. As the twin moons set over the Vierk's capital, Scifi and Elias stood together on the balcony, watching the stars. The war was not yet over, but the queen felt a confidence she had never known before. With this human at her side, she knew they could face whatever the galaxy threw at them. And in that moment, she realized a truth the galaxy had yet to learn. The strength of humans was not in their size, their weapons, or their pride. It was in their intelligence, their patience, and their ability to act when it mattered most. Elias had shown that strength quietly, steadily, and decisively, and the galaxy would soon learn the same lesson, whether it was ready or not. The war continued, the stars watched silently, and humanity revealed its power, not in arrogance but in action. And Queen Scifi knew that the man she had married, the human she had once thought humble and harmless, was the key to the future of the Vierk's dominion. The Vierk's capital had never been so tense. Outside the palace walls, the remnants of the enemy fleet regrouped, gathering their strength for what they hoped would be a final, devastating attack. The twin suns burned harshly in the sky, casting long shadows over the streets below. The people of the Vierk's dominion waited silently, aware that the coming hours could determine the fate of their world. Inside the palace, Queen Scifi moved through the command center with purposeful steps. Her violet eyes scanned every holographic display, noting fleet positions, enemy movements, and the status of colonies that had been threatened. Beside her, Elias Ward remained calm, observing each detail with quiet focus. The man who had once seemed humble and gentle had become the guiding force for their defense. "Your Majesty," General Krall said, his multiple arms folded tightly, "the enemy has consolidated its remaining forces. They are larger than expected, more coordinated than before. Even with your human consort's guidance, the risk is significant." Elias did not flinch. He studied the enemy fleet calmly, noting their formations and likely strategy. Risk exists in every battle, General, he said softly. But preparation, patience, and understanding the opponent's behavior can minimize that risk. We have already seen the results of careful strategy. We will do so again. The generals exchanged uneasy glances. They could not deny that the previous battles had turned in their favor because of Ilya's insight and coordination. And yet, this final confrontation was larger, more dangerous than anything they had faced before. Queen Scifi approached Ilias, her expression a mixture of concern and admiration. "Are you certain we can win this?" Ilias looked at her, calm and steady. "No victory is guaranteed, Your Majesty, but we will act with precision. We will use their confidence and predictability against them. If the soldiers follow our plan, and I believe they will, we can defeat them without unnecessary loss of life." She nodded. She had learned that Ilias did not speak lightly. Every word was measured, every plan carefully considered. The humans were underestimated across the galaxy, and she understood why. They did not boast, they did not seek praise, but when action was required, they acted decisively. The Vierks fleets moved into position under Ilia's guidance. Smaller units drew the enemy into the fields of asteroid belts, where their larger ships became vulnerable. Hidden reserves, including human ships, moved silently, waiting for the precise moment to strike. The enemy fleet, confident in their superior numbers, advanced without hesitation. Then Ilias acted. "Now," he said softly, pointing to key positions on the holographic map. "Strike the engines first, disable their mobility. Then the boarding units move in to neutralize their command. Timing is everything." The Vierk soldiers executed the orders flawlessly. The enemy flagship staggered under the coordinated attacks, unable to maneuver effectively. Smaller vessels moved to intercept reinforcements, while hidden units struck at key supply ships. Panic spread among the enemy ranks. Their confidence, once absolute, began to crumble. Queen Scifi watched, her heart pounding with awe. Ilias, her quiet and humble consort, had orchestrated an operation that would have overwhelmed even the most seasoned Vierks commanders. Yet he remained calm, patient, and composed. There was no arrogance in his actions, only precision, intelligence, and care. The boarding operation began. Human and Vierks forces moved together seamlessly, infiltrating the enemy flagship. Inside, the enemy crew scrambled, unprepared for the coordinated strike. Ilias directed the operation through secure channels, his voice calm and authoritative, guiding each unit with clarity. Within hours, the flagship was secured. The enemy command officers were captured, and the remaining fleet began to retreat. Victory, once uncertain, was now assured. The Queen approached Ilias as he reviewed the final reports. "You saved countless lives today," she said softly. "I guided them," he corrected gently. "The soldiers executed the plan, they fought bravely, I only provided direction." Scifi smiled, realizing the truth she had been learning over the past days. Humans did not seek glory or recognition. Their strength was quiet, steady, and disciplined. Ilias had shown her that humility did not mean weakness, and calmness did not mean inaction. He was a force that the galaxy had misunderstood for centuries. General Kral, who had doubted Ilias from the beginning, approached hesitantly. "Human, your plan worked flawlessly. I did not expect such precision. You have my respect." Ilias nodded politely. "Thank you, General." The credit belongs to all who fought. Strategy is only effective when executed well. The Queen placed a hand gently on Ilias' shoulder. Her violet eyes reflected pride and admiration. "I underestimated you," she said. "I thought you were quiet, humble, and harmless. But you are so much more than that. You are a protector, a strategist, and a force of nature." Ilias shook his head slightly. "Strength is not for showing, Your Majesty. It is to be used when necessary and with care. That is what humans do." The Queen studied him, the man she had married for duty and diplomacy, and now understood fully why he had remained calm and unassuming. He did not act for recognition. He acted because it was necessary, because it was right, and because he could. Messages began to arrive from across the Vierks' dominion. Colonies once threatened by enemy attacks reported that the human-guided defenses had saved countless lives. The soldiers who had doubted Ilias now spoke of his guidance with respect and awe. The nobles who had whispered insults could no longer ignore the truth. The man beside their queen was extraordinary. Scifi turned to Ilias, her expression thoughtful. "You have not only saved our world, but changed how my people see humans." They have underestimated us, underestimated you. How do you remain so calm in the face of such danger? Elias smiled faintly. Experience, observation, and patience, your majesty. Humans learn that fear and rash action often lead to loss. Calmness allows clarity. Clarity allows the right action at the right time. The queen nodded slowly. She realized that she had not just married a consort. She had chosen a partner who could guide entire fleets, protect millions of lives, and act with wisdom beyond measure. The galaxy might still underestimate humans, but she had learned the truth. The next day, celebrations began across the Vierk's dominion. Colonies and cities sent messages of gratitude and relief. Soldiers who had followed Elia's guidance returned home safely. Even the nobles, once doubtful, acknowledged the quiet heroism of the human who had led them through the darkest days. Scifi stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out at the city below. She turned to Elias, her eyes soft but serious. I see now why the galaxy underestimates humans. They do not understand humility, patience, or the quiet strength that lies within. And I see now why I married you, not for appearances, not for politics, but for the strength of your mind, your heart, and your character. Elias bowed slightly, his expression modest. It was my duty, your majesty. My actions were only necessary because of the situation. Humans do not act for recognition. We act because it is right. The queen smiled, her admiration deepening. You have shown me that strength is not always loud, courage is not always visible, and intelligence is not always boastful. You have changed my view of humans entirely. Elias looked out at the stars, calm and reflective. The galaxy will learn soon enough, your majesty. And I hope that when they do, they understand that humans act with care, intelligence, and determination, not arrogance or pride. Scifi nodded. She had married a humble man, quiet and seemingly ordinary. Yet she now understood fully. He was extraordinary in every way that mattered. His humility concealed power, his calmness revealed courage, and his quiet demeanor masked a mind capable of guiding worlds. The Vierk's dominion had survived. The enemy had been defeated, not by brute force alone, but by intelligence, patience, and careful strategy. And the man beside the queen, Elia's ward, had proven that humans were not to be underestimated. That night the queen and her consort stood together in the gardens of the palace. The twin moons reflected on the crystal pools, casting a serene light over the flowers and trees. The air was calm, the city quiet after days of chaos. You were right, Scifi said softly. Humans act not for glory, but because it is necessary. You have shown me the truth. Elias smiled faintly. And you, your majesty, have shown me the strength of your people and the wisdom of your leadership. Together, we protect what matters. The queen looked at him, a sense of deep respect and affection in her eyes. I see now that the galaxy judged humans wrongly, and I see now that I married not a humble man, but a protector, a strategist, and a hero. You have my gratitude, my respect, and my trust, Elia's ward. Elias bowed slightly, his expression modest but proud. And you have my loyalty, your majesty, always. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, Queen Scifi understood a simple truth. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but she had learned the lesson firsthand. Strength was not always loud, courage was not always visible, and intelligence was not always boastful. Elia's ward had shown all of this and more. He had saved worlds, guided fleets, and revealed the quiet, steady, and extraordinary power of humanity. The queen smiled, finally seeing the man behind the humble exterior. And she knew without a doubt that humanity's true strength would echo across the stars for generations to come. The war was over. The Vierk's dominion was safe. And the queen had discovered the truth about her consort. He was no ordinary human. He was a force the galaxy would never forget.